Welcome to Small Town Bringdown. I'm Brandon Grider.
I'm Elliot Drew.
Thanks for tuning in to the number one podcast amongst people that have recently won Best Male Lead. There's really only one person, and that's Elliot.
This is me. It's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this podcast is number one amongst me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So you're just going to lead with that. We're just going to jump right into that.
Yeah, jumping right in.
Toot my own horn
Sorry,
if
my
I
mouth
can.
was full of beer there.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking about this play that you've done, the complete works of William Shakespeare abridged.
Yeah.
Which was written by three friends, and they were like, we're going to try and do this in 90 minutes.
Yep.
That's the premise behind this play. So they have written a play, and it is almost 90 minutes. It's actually quite impressive.
Yeah.
It's almost like I went to a late show of the DiCaprio movie, Man with the Iron Mask. You remember that movie?
Yeah.
Like the old Three Musketeers and stuff. I remember we were watching it, and I think it started at like 9:30 or something. It's like a 4-hour long movie too. But we started watching it, and at one point in the movie, they're going to go and break the Iron Mask kid out, like before they know that he's the twin, Louis or whatever. So they're going to go and break him out. And at some point, there's a guy on a horse under the silhouette of the moon, and there's like a bell goes off, and the line is, "It's midnight. Let's get going." Right at that time, my buddy Brian looked at his watch, and it was exactly midnight. And that's stuck in my head ever since, because it's just one of those weird things that happens, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, you've been talking about this play, and you've filled us in on the workings of theater and plays and all this stuff over the years. So you deserve the right to talk about, you won an award for this performance that you did.
I sure did, which was amazing. And I'm going to preface this really quickly with the fact that I was fortunate enough to be named on the award, but the award really truly belongs to. I share it with the two other guys that were on stage with me.
Well, sure, yeah.
For sure. Like, it was just three people running this show. We ran ourselves ragged doing it. It was amazing. It was a great experience. And any goodness that I brought to the stage really relied so very heavily on them as well.
Yeah.
So it's nice that I got recognized, and I feel really great about that. But it goes without saying that if any goodness that came of this belongs to them as well.
Well, it's like, like anybody says when they win an award, like an Oscar or something.
Yeah.
Yes, they were the one that actually gave the performance, but they weren't the ones who got that performance done.
Yeah.
It was all of the funders, the directors, the crew, everybody right down to the fucking guy who cut the celery sticks to feed the people deserves thanks.
Well, and they all deserve thanks, but in this specific case, because I've been fortunate enough. This is the third time I've won this award. This is my hat trick.
Okay.
For this particular award, which is really, really, really cool. And before I was like, you know what, this was my performance. I felt like I brought something really unique and very special to the stage during those other two shows that I did. This particular one, I really do feel that my performance, everything, like a lot of the stuff, the gags that I did, all that stuff relied so heavily on the other two. Some of the gags are their ideas.
Yeah.
Like this was a very collaborative. It took all three of us to make this show happen, and everything, it just so happened in this particular person's view that, that was my performance stood above it. That's great, but that performance literally wouldn't have existed.
Well, there's a lot of moments where you're the one who does the line, but they play the straight man to your comedy guy. So.
And the way the script's written is that I am that, I'm kind of that idiot character that gets a lot of the laughs, and they get to be the foil to my joke.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done it without them. So that's where that lives first off and before everything else. But yeah, it was really cool. I was recognized, and that's really neat.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is this is kind of, for me, this is the third time winning this award, which is really, it puts me in a very elite club in the history of our particular area. There's only 2 other people that have done that in the history of us being an organization.
Gotcha.
That have done that. So that's really, that in and of itself is really, really cool. You know, and if for some other fluke, because I don't plan on stopping or moving anywhere else. So if I actually can make the 4th, that would make me the only person to have done that.
So what were the other 2 roles that you won for?
I won for the importance of being earnest.
Yeah.
And I won for Greater Tuna.
Okay.
So I can't even remember the role I played in Ernest. I can't remember the character's name at this
That's
moment.
memorable.
Boof! It's fallen out of my head.
That's funny.
Well,
I won an award for it. It was amazing. It was one of the best moments of my life. Who'd you play?
and that was my
Fuck if
first
I
one
know.
too. That was my first one too. You'd think I would remember it, but it's been a few years
Yeah.
since that happened. That's most probably about 6 years ago.
Well, you took a huge break with like in between. Like you took a lot of time off from the theater because of your day job.
Yeah.
So you weren't able to even be like eligible to
Well, I just wasn't
for these awards because you
wasn't
weren't in
involved.
anything. Yeah.
I was doing other things. And not that I've ever stopped, but I just wasn't part of this particular, like, going to festival, which is something I used to be very heavily involved in. This is my first show back in quite a while on stage.
Yeah.
In quite a while. So that's really cool. It just so happens that my last 3 performances in festival plays have happened to garner me awards, which is really cool too.
Yeah, we were actually talking about it after you had announced on Facebook that you had won. That we thought it was kind of cool that it was only your second play back after a really long hiatus, and you managed to win this, the lead award.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
It was really cool, and the show did, like, more so than that, I would actually say, because we struggled. This show struggled to get audiences and seats, which is absolutely ludicrous. It was really stupid.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other rant, and I'm not even going to get into that because not enough. It's not funny, and it's a thing. So to be able to go, we had a sold out house that night.
Yeah.
Not just a sold out house, but a very theater literate house.
Yeah.
Full of
We had a bunch of other like
actors, and
not necessarily from here, but from like other communities around us, and you guys are all in the same like competition zone.
Yeah.
Is that what you call it? A zone?
yeah.
Yeah. So
So there was lots. It was
they knew what.
they got a lot of the in jokes that just because it's Shakespeare, so it's a lot of jokes about theater.
Yeah.
And we all know Shakespeare, and there's more than enough comedy for, like, you could know nothing about William Shakespeare or about theater and still come out and have a great time. But because it is about, like, and if you know more, the more you know about Shakespeare, the funnier it's going to be to you.
Yeah.
And the more you know about theater in general, the fun, like, it's another layer of funny. And there's also an appreciation for the speed and the style that we do this show in.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever had to be backstage in that, like, something that fast paced where costumes are flying and props are flying and entrances and exits are so quick,
Yeah.
you appreciate it that much more. Like, you know what it took for me to walk off and 30 seconds later come in as a whole new character with a completely different costume, and when I say props are literally flying, they are flying. They fly over the top, or they're all over the place because, that's the way the show is done. So there's a great appreciation for that, and we were really fortunate that, the way the show is built, there's kind of an ending, a natural break that seems like it's the end of the show, which is not.
Yeah.
But it kind of seems like there is. And in that moment, the audience just, the lights went off and they came back on, and the audience was on its feet.
Yeah.
Like in that blackout, they had already stood up. They were already like hooting and hollering, and we're like, "Fuck, we're not done. Like, we're not done yet. Like, thank you, God, we appreciate it, but there's more.
Yeah.
Like, don't get overexcited. We're gonna do like we're gonna blow your socks off.
Sit down.
And so it was just a great atmosphere to do the show in. Like from the moment Mitch, one of the other actors, opens the show, he steps up to do like these kind of bogus announcements,
Yeah.
opening announcements. From the moment he stepped out, he put them in the right place. They were laughing already, and so it just built and built and built, and it just got stupider and crazier and more fun.
Yeah.
And it was a magical night to be on stage.
Good.
And that's really like that's an award. That's the real award.
Yeah.
That's what we do this for. You know, like it's great to have somebody come up and be like, "Here's a little piece
Here's a
of wood
plaque."
that says that you're awesome." It's another thing to have a house of people, like, and especially in this case, our peers, you know, so blown away by the performance that they can't even hold themselves back.
Yeah.
They're with us 110%. There really is. There's a give and take on stage. Anybody that's ever performed anything, you know, even as mild as like giving a presentation at work,
Yeah.
you know, with a PowerPoint, you know when you're doing well.
Yeah.
You know, if you're engaging and you've done that, and you also know when it's going badly.
Well, you and I performed. You and I did a live show of this very podcast. Mm-hmm. And we had, maybe about 40 people there? Something like 35, 40 people.
I think
30.
it was actually closer to 60, but that's okay.
Okay, I don't remember. It was like 6 years ago. But we had a fairly decent crowd for, you know, this considering we were like, nobody knew what a podcast was even.
Yeah.
But there was time, like we had, normally when we sit down, we may have one or two things where we're like, we have stories. We don't know what the stories are that we're going to talk about. Lately, we don't really actually do that very often. But we just sort of ramble. But at that point, we had sort of actually sat down and we had a list. And we were like, this is where we'll talk about this, which will lead us to this joke. And that we, you know, if you mention this, then I can mention that. And we sort of had a thing. And we had a bit more of a formula. You can listen to it. You can go back and listen to it. It's like episode 52 or 54 or something.
Yeah.
But anyways, when we did that, we were literally like, at that time we were doing a segment where we were picking towns and sort of highlighting, like small towns up to a certain size, and we were sort of highlighting them. And we were doing that, and we had the crowd, and they were laughing, they were having a good time, laugh along. And then we got to that, and we're like, oh, well, we'll do this section of the show. And that's it. Like, it went totally dead quiet. Nobody was laughing. And we were like, okay, let's fuck this. Well, let's move on. And so I understand what you're saying about, like, you know, and like when I did the valedictorian speech when I did carpentry school years and years ago.
Yeah.
And I wrote it myself, and nobody else, like, the school had to read it to make sure that I wasn't going to swear or anything, but they never edited it or anything other than that censorship, so to speak, the check. But they didn't make me change anything. But I got up there and I read it, and you could, like, I had the audience, and I was telling jokes, I was being sentimental, and then I'd tell another joke, and then I'd be a little sentimental, and then I ended on a high note, and then end with a joke, and I'm out, right?
Yeah.
But you could tell. So I get what you're saying. Like, you can sort of get the audience, and if you get them, you get them, and you work hard to keep them. But then if you don't get them, it goes for shit.
Well, and that's the thing is that and there are moments on stage, and they're little unicorn moments. Like they're rare, like they're magical.
Yeah.
But they do happen where you have a night where all of a sudden you've got the audience in the palm of your hand, and you know it.
Yeah.
And you can do no wrong. Like, you can literally, it doesn't matter. You could fall down, you could sit on the stage, and you could start reading the dictionary, and they'd still love it.
Yeah.
Like and it's a magical experience. And that was one of those nights. We just had one of those nights.
Yeah.
Everything was working, like even things that went wrong. And then by far, it wasn't a perfect show.
Yeah.
But every cover, every flip, that didn't go right, we're going to push it this way, was the right step with that audience. So even the things that went wrong were great because they led to a joke that went better.
Yeah. Did your kilt fall off?
Yes.
Nice.
And that's like, there you go. And literally, not only did my kilt fall off, but it didn't, because the show is so physical, I've lost quite a bit of weight. So when that kilt was made for me, it was much tighter.
Yeah.
And it held up better. Well, since I've lost so much weight, it started falling off.
This is for the Macbeth part of the.
And I walked out like immediately with so it's on, it's all ready to go. I walked out for my entrance and it fell off.
Nice.
It didn't even make the whole, it's fallen off. We have a fight scene and that's where it's kind of fallen off since. Usually if it's going to go, that's usually where it goes off. It didn't even make it, it immediately just fell off.
Nice.
I walked out and it fell off. And I can't even remember the joke I used to cover it up. Yeah. But it brought the house down. Yeah. It was like, that was it. I had to wait to even get my because it was hanging off of me. Yeah. So I literally ripped the thing off and threw it off stage and made a joke as I was doing so, and then turned back to get, and I had to wait. I had to wait and wait.
Because everybody was clapping so much.
They were like, for them, it was the best thing that happened all night in that moment. They were just like, yeah, your kilt fell off. Oh, that's awesome. I'm like, okay.
Well, I know the second time I came to see the show, because I filmed it once, and then I came with my wife and we watched it. It fell off that night, and the joke because it happens when you swing a golf club.
Yeah.
And what happens is you've killed Macbeth, and you've got his head, and then you treat his head
as
like
a golf ball,
and you hit it, and when you've swung and hit his head off of.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I'm ruining the play.
No, at this point, it's okay.
Yeah. Plus, I'm pretty sure people know what happened in Macbeth.
And nobody hits Macbeth's head.
No, of course not. But anyways, you hit his head off stage, and at that point, that's where your kilt fell off, and you said the joke of, "Oh, that was such a great hit, it knocked me kilt off," or something along that lines.
Yeah.
And that, there wasn't as big of a crowd. There was only maybe 60 people there when we saw it, but it was still enough to, everybody just laughed and laughed and laughed at that. They thought it was amazing.
Yeah. And so it wasn't a perfect show, but in even its flaws made it better that night.
Yeah.
And we had a great performance. We really, and it was a ton of work. We actually, because this show was so physical, we had to do it twice that day. Because we had to run, because we were in a new place in a new theater, and we had to run the whole show to make sure we had all the bits, because the choreography behind the scenes is actually way more important than what happens on stage.
Yeah. Because you had 4 people behind the scenes.
Yeah, just dressing us, making sure we were frickin', props in the right spot. And the layout backstage is completely different than our theater, so we really had to be like, who's got to be where? Because a handoff is a handoff, and we have to make sure,
if you're coming off with one and you're taking this wig off and putting on another wig, they got to be there.
Yeah. And so we had to run the entire show to make sure that stuff all got sorted. So we ran it twice that day, and so it was a marathon of a day.
So how does that work when you're with props and costume changes and stuff? I understand, you have dressers.
Yeah.
People who specifically dress you, and we talked about that on here. But with the props, so they know, okay, when you're coming off, they know the script just as well as you guys do.
Yeah.
So they're there and they can hear you guys talking, and you say, "Oh, I have to go get my battle, or I got to go prepare for battle," and they know you're coming off, and you need to have a sword and a shield, as an example.
Yeah.
So is that stuff sitting on a table?
Yep.
and it's all lined up and in like is in order, and then when you come off, they just like throw it in the back corner type thing.
Depending, because
they're not going to lay it there and like where it could possibly get mixed up with something else, right? They'll put it like somewhere else.
Or if they have to reuse it. Like
Okay.
there's some props that we use for different times.
Like if you're doing 11 sword fights throughout the whole play with the same swords,
yeah.
then obviously those aren't getting tossed off. But if you use one item once, like say a book once, that doesn't, like what happens to that? You guys don't, like it's going to put it on another table that doesn't get touched again type thing?
Well, we use a bunch of bookshelves.
Oh, okay.
So what would normally happen is that they would, like everything's laid out on the bookshelf in a very specific spot in a specific order for that.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes we don't have time to even go back to the bookshelf, so that they'll be there and they're like, "Here's your stuff."
Gotcha.
Like I'm handing it to you, you run away, and then sometimes I come back and I have time, so I go and I put it back on what we call the return.
Gotcha.
All right, so like the bottom couple of shelves are the return, and I put it back there. Now, if it's required again, I don't put it in the return. I put it back in its spot.
Back where it was. Okay.
So that we know that, it still needs to be used. And that's kind of how that works.
Gotcha.
And then we and they're kind of laid off. Like it's not just one spot, depending on, I have personal props that were with, over by my dresser. I had the other guys had their personal, like there's certain stuff that they're like, oh, okay, this gets together with my costume change.
Okay. So like there's one scene where you have a glass of water.
Yeah.
In the and it repeats a couple of times, but you're the only one in the entire play that has a glass of water.
Yeah.
So that would be over by your spot.
No, that one's actually that particular one because I grab it as I walk out the door, so that's sitting on the bookcase, on top of the bookcase, right by the door.
Oh, okay.
So as I walk by, I grab it, but they make sure that there's actually weirdly enough, there's 2 glasses, and they're always full.
Yeah. So when you empty the one, and bring it back, they'll fill it up again, and you take the second one.
Yeah.
So you're constantly like leapfrogging.
We're
glasses
leapfrogging them because I use that 3 or 4 times, right?
Yeah.
So that goes through that. But there's 2 of them, mainly because we need to use it a couple of times, and something could go wrong.
Yeah, if you drop it,
I could
shatter the glass.
Because I died, and there was one weird day where that ended up, I died, it fell out of my hand because it's wet.
Yeah.
And I was all involved in my death, and it flew into the audience. And so they're like, "Well, make sure we have another one." There's the same thing happens. We actually we have a rubber skull.
Yeah.
Because Hamlet, as he speaks of Yorick, he actually uses the skull as like a football, and he spikes it.
Yeah.
And it can end up landing in the audience.
Yeah.
But he has to do that twice.
Gotcha.
So we made sure we have 2 of those skulls, because what would happen if the second, if one goes in we don't have time to run into the audience and retrieve that skull.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? If it takes a weird bounce, and you really can't control how a skull bounces.
Oh, they don't bounce like balls. Nice and perfectly in line.
Yeah. So just stuff like that. You build in your contingencies. That's what you do. And then everybody, it like I said, it's just a choreographed dance.
Yeah.
Everybody okay, I put this on you here. I move over here. I grab these things. I go to this point, and I give them to the next guy, and everything works. And hopefully everything works. And there's definitely times where things go wrong. There was one night I ran back, and they put the wrong costume on me.
Oh, really?
And I didn't realize until I heard my cue line, and I'm like, I'm not this person right now.
Yeah.
So I'm backstage being like, I'm busy. And he's like saying his cue line again. I'm like, I'll be right there.
Yeah.
And we're having a conversation over the wall as I'm getting redressed.
That's funny.
Because what else am I going to do?
Yeah, I guess you can't really, you can't go out wrong.
Yeah. Well, in that moment, I couldn't, so I had to get changed before I went back out. Only mainly because there's a joke later where I come out dressed wrong, and I didn't want to ruin that joke. So I was like, well, but we played the scene, the scene over the wall where I'm like, they're like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm busy. I'm doing stuff, and he's like, and I'm like, yeah, you can him all you want. I'm not coming till I'm ready.
Nice.
Right. Which got a great, like, obviously the audience at that point goes, oh, there's something weird going on, but it's kind of funny anyway.
Yeah.
But then they're like, it's the kind of show where that could have actually been written into the script.
Yeah.
Like, they don't know.
Yeah.
Like, because it was funny. And if it's funny, maybe it's real.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they're supposed to be having this conversation over the wall.
Well, it's like I came and filmed the one night, and there's a scene where you come running down into the audience like you want to run away from the situation and get away, and you actually fucking biffed her.
Yeah.
You fell that like in between the two rows of chairs, and it was like you told me after the fact that it was not scripted. You were not supposed to do that. You just slipped or you bumped, got knocked over or whatever. So, but for me, as like I was filming, so like, but I also, of course, I'm watching it at the same time. I actually was like, oh, that's pretty, like, that's commitment.
Yeah. Wow, he felt really well there.
Yeah.
I wonder how long he practiced that.
Yeah, exactly. It was, it was like, because you covered it in such a way that it actually made it seem like it was part of the show.
Yeah.
That you, like, obviously it was part of the show that you were in the audience at that time, but the way you covered the fall, it was.
Yeah. And that's your job as an actor, is especially in this type of show, is to make everything seem like you're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
And that's, maybe that's, in that moment, that was, I did a couple of those things that night, and maybe that's what won me the award. I don't know. I'm not in the adjudicator's head. But yeah.
So okay, so let's, we'll just cover. So best male lead.
Yep.
Best runner-up.
We were runner-up
production.
For best runner-up production. We almost won the whole kit and caboodle, not quite. A beautiful play from one of the other clubs came in at the last day. We were like, oh, we think we've got it. We think we've got it. And then on the very last day, it's such a beautiful piece of theater. If you happen to be in Vernon, BC, just, shameless plug.
We have a big audience in Vernon.
If you happen to be in Vernon, BC, over the Canada Day weekend, specifically June 28th or 29th, I believe are the dates, you can go and catch. It's called Collected Stories. It's from our club in Qualicum here called Echo Players, and it was a beautiful, beautiful piece of theater. It was so well done. It was funny. It was touching. It was everything. The two ladies that put it on are extremely good and great to watch. The set is beautiful. There was very little to quibble about with the show, and anything that I could say about it is quibbles. It's not criticism. Like, you got to find something. You're like, they can't be perfect. But it was by far, I have seen professional live theater that is not that good. It was a brilliant piece of theater, and very, very touching and very beautiful.
Right on.
So like, we watched it, and the curtain went down, and I looked at Teresa and I just went, fuck.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I knew that in that moment that they had won, and they deserved the win. But they're going to be in Vernon at Main Stage, which is the big BC-wide competition, and which is what we continue to strive to win, to go to, that we haven't quite done yet. But they did, and it was beautiful because they haven't gone in quite a while. This is it's been like almost 15, 20 years or something for them.
Yeah.
So this club brought their A game too, and they just slayed it with it. It was so good.
So whoever wins like, you guys are the North Zone.
Yeah.
So that whoever wins that goes to the provincials.
There are 10 provincial zones, and that's as far as we go. We don't, like, there's no national, like, someday it would be beautiful if there actually was because a lot of the provinces have amateur theater clubs.
Yeah.
Province-wise theater clubs, and they do this, and someday it would be great if there was, like, hey, if you win, we're going to bring everybody together, and we're going to go to wherever,
Ottawa or whatever,
and we're going to put on a beautiful piece of theater, the best of the country, and go national. But we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Someday maybe. But that would be really cool. So we only go as, like, really, if you win the province, that's the big bragging rights.
Yeah.
And actually, that competition, again, shameless plug, is coming to Port Alberni.
Yeah.
I know I don't know if it's been officially announced yet, so we better be
Maybe I'll edit this part out.
circumspect. But
So
but-
okay, so anyways, so best male lead,
yep,
best runner-up production,
yep,
best newcomer
yep,
for Mitch. You guy you said earlier opens the show.
yep.
Mitch Cote is his name, right?
Yep. Second, this is the first full-length show he's ever done in his life.
He did a couple of one-act plays, correct?
Yeah, earlier this year, but this is his first full-length play, and so he got that award and recognition for that, which he totally deserves. He kicked ass.
Yeah. And your group won best lighting design?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So 4 awards
Yeah.
out of how many potential awards?
I believe there's 11
So
or
4
12.
So 4 out of 11, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a good ratio.
Yeah, it was maybe there's a 14. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to like sit here and calculate it, and I'm not going to do that. But yeah, we definitely did. We won. We did really well at this festival, and it was really cool.
Good.
So that's. But now the show's over, and
Yeah.
we put it to bed, and we start on our next endeavor in like next week. like literally next week is the next endeavor.
So the other day, I think it was on the Wednesday when you were doing your last performance of this show. Mm-hmm. That one of my favorite scenes of you doing this show, and then we'll move on to something else after. But one of my favorite scenes was the bite your thumb scene
Oh yeah.
with you and Mitch, and it's the scene from Romeo and Juliet where, what I can't remember their names.
Mercutio and Benvolio.
Yeah, are like, did you bite your thumb at me? No, I did not bite my thumb at you. I did bite my thumb, but not at you, sir.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's one of my favorite scenes of your play. And I really enjoyed watching it, and I enjoyed editing it after I filmed it. But I was watching TV after the wife had fallen asleep, and Romeo and Juliet, the Baz Luhrmann version,
Yeah.
with DiCaprio and Claire Danes was on, and I came in right at the start of that scene
Yeah.
where they're at the gas station and so on and so forth. And I didn't watch the whole movie, but for the whole scene, I was like, yeah, it holds up. I was quite surprised. I was like, that's, considering that was made in the 90s,
Yeah.
I was like, it's not too bad.
Well, consider what the play was done in like 1602 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it holds up because it holds up.
Yeah, it was just, but like the movie itself, I was like, as 90s as it is with the style and the hair and what they were going for, I was like, that's pretty good. And then I was like, I thought it was coincidental that I came upon it right at that scene,
Yeah.
which was, like I say, my favorite scene from your play. Okay, let's move on.
All right.
You arrived here earlier.
Yeah.
And when we started to record, you were like, I have a story to talk about.
I do.
And I was blown away because neither one of us really brings in much anymore. We just sort of talk about whatever. But you were like, I have something. I did research.
Let's be honest. I didn't do research.
Okay, somebody sent you something.
Something popped up on my Facebook, and I was like, we have to talk about this.
Okay.
Because it's a thing.
So what is it?
This week in New York,
Okay.
there's some very put out parents
Okay.
because their kid has been behaving
As all parents are, really,
Badly.
I think sometimes.
like their kid has been behaving really bad.
Do you light the school on fire or something?
Well, it was so bad that they ended up having to go to court against their son.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he steal their money or something?
No, he didn't steal their money. He didn't
Sell their car?
He didn't sell their car. He refuses to move the fuck out of their house.
Okay, so when he goes to college, he's refusing to go to college and move out?
No.
When he hit 18?
No. He did leave for a while, but then he came back.
Okay.
And now he is 30 years old. And after repeated attempts for many years, they've been trying to get him to move along. You need to.
You gots to go.
You got to go.
Come on, fucker.
They eventually, finally served him official eviction papers.
Like with the sheriff and everything? Oh, my God.
And he took them to court.
he sued them.
Yeah, he was like, you can't kick me out. I know the law. And sure enough, the judge was like, yeah, you may know the law, but you don't know the law like you think you know the law, because that law you're citing that's got you this court case has already been discussed in this thing. Now, here's the great thing. And this is there's a certain part of me. Now, this guy he's
Okay.
not that much younger than we are.
Okay, so does he pay rent?
No.
Okay, does he have a mental disability?
No.
Physical disability?
No.
Does he work?
No.
He doesn't work.
It doesn't seem like it.
So he doesn't have an income in the first place.
It would seem so.
So he's just sponging off his parents at 30 years old.
For many years.
Wow.
Because this guy, like, we talk about entitlement. We've talked about it on the show, and
Yeah.
we talk about it a lot in our other like our private lives, because there's a part of me that's like, yeah, you know what? There are certain things you are entitled to.
Yeah.
As a human being on this planet, you are entitled to certain things.
Yeah.
I think.
Oxygen.
I believe that you are entitled to those things. You get oxygen, you get water. Water is free.
Yeah.
For everybody, it should be.
Security.
Right? You should you should be able to live in relative security from harm.
Yeah.
I really do believe it for us here, education to a certain degree is a right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a right. You should be able to, like, if I want to know, I want to learn how to read, I should be able to go to some place and learn how to read.
Yeah.
All right? You can't take away my ability to, like, my learning. You can't be like, oh, sorry, you got blue eyes, you can't learn how to read.
Sorry, girls don't know. Girls don't read here.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
No, there's none of that. I have the right to an education.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I may not be able to afford a great education, but I have a right to one at least. I have the right to pursue an education. I have the right to pursue whatever religious beliefs within reason that I want to.
Yeah.
If I'm like part of a satanic, virgin, sacrificing clan, that's most probably not okay.
Yeah.
But within, the realm of not hurting other people, I should be able to pursue whatever rights I want.
Fair enough. Yeah.
That's the right, But there are a lot of things that other people are like, I have a right to a cell phone.
Yeah.
Well, you don't.
Yeah.
But it's not something that's
Driving a car is a right.
Yeah.
No. It's just a privilege.
It's a privilege.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are privileges that are now being seen as rights.
Yeah.
Right.
Excuse me.
And weirdly enough, the right to live in your parents' house for forever is not a right.
That's not true.
Your parents
Doesn't exist.
own that. They've worked really hard, and at some point, they really expected you to leave.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't just and this is the thing, is these parents were way nicer than I am.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh, maybe you could go back to school. We'd pay for that. Oh, maybe we could help you, like, move out, and I could pay your first and last month's rent at this place.
Yeah.
Maybe this would happen. Like, maybe this would happen. And they finally just got fed up, and they're like, no, get out.
Yeah.
No, you need to leave.
Bye.
Go away.
Bye, Felicia.
If you don't get out right now, that's it.
Yeah.
And then they were like, finally, we're going to talk to somebody, because, like, he's like, I'm not leaving. You can't make me leave. And I'm like, oh, I could make you leave.
Oh, yeah. Look, fucktard.
Yeah. And I'm going to be like, if you were living with your parents who love you enough to put up with you for like multiple years, this is not like he moved in for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And he was there for a couple. No, he's been there for a long time.
It's a little bit different. Like when I first moved, I had moved from here to Vancouver.
Yeah.
And I'd been in Vancouver for a few years, like 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
And then I got offered a job here, so I moved back. But I couldn't find an apartment and move and start my new job and everything else within the span of like 2 days.
Yep.
So I talked to my parents and I was like, hey, can I stay with you guys for a couple of weeks?
Yeah.
They said, well, we don't have room in the house because they had gutted the spare bedroom at that point. But they were like, you're free to live in our fifth wheel travel trailer.
Yeah.
So I lived in there for 3 weeks while I waited for and then I found an apartment like the second day after I was here. I went to work, for 2 days, and after my second day, I was like, I went and interviewed for an apartment. I got the apartment, but they were like, we need to paint. Somebody just moved out. We have to paint. It's the rules. Excuse me. So I had to wait 2 weeks for them to paint. I said to my parents, I'm going to be here for 3 weeks total. Sure, no problem. I was paying my own food. I gave them some money for hydro, blah, 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 right? You do what you got to do sometimes. Our oldest, one of our daughters had the same thing. She had to move out of one apartment, couldn't get another one for a couple months. She came and lived in my travel trailer because it's what we had, right? She could have come and lived at your place or whatever in the spare room. So you do what you got to do for your kids sometimes.
And that's for helping them out.
Yeah, but for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, and he moved away briefly, had a brief affair. It seems like he had a kid or something like that. But then he moved home.
Yeah.
The relationship fell, whatever happened. I don't know. I don't know his life.
Well, the thing about
I just know that this kid moved back into his parents' house and then refused to leave to the point where when they were like, you will leave. He's like, I'm suing you.
Yeah.
Because you can't kick me out because
I've never in my life would I have ever thought where my parents were like, okay, I think it's time for you to go. Or I think it's time for you to do this. I'd never be like so against doing whatever they were telling me that I was like, I'm hiring a lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm going to sue you for this to prevent you from doing this to me. I would never even think to do that to my parents.
Well, and I'm going to be like, these are the parents that, like, as much as my parents and I, like, we didn't have, like, we had our differences when I was younger, and maybe we still do today. But we don't dwell on them at this point because we can have a relationship outside of that because we've all grown up.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm 40.
Yeah.
Like, if I was going to change, I would have.
Yeah, you're on the downward slope of life now. So,
they're not going to be around that long. We don't want to spend our whole time fighting. That's okay.
Yeah.
Right? You do
well,
you.
Rightfully so.
You do you, I do me, and then sometimes we get together and we have a chat. It's nice.
I think the biggest thing is when it comes to parents and their children, and children and their parents, vice versa, is that everybody at some point has to realize that they're no longer in quote unquote control of that other person.
Yeah.
At some point you realize that your parents no longer have a say in what you do.
Yeah.
And at some point your parents realize the same thing.
Yeah.
And that is how you're able to have
an adult
relationship with your parents.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you're going to be to the point where you're going to be like, hey, Joan, hey, Bruce, how's things going?
Yeah.
They're
still my mom and my dad, and there's still certain things that, like, I still act a certain way around them because they're my parents.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's be honest, when I was young, they literally kept me from dying.
Yeah.
By force feeding me and kept me, like, out of my own shit. And
Yeah.
for that alone, they deserve some recognition.
Yeah, well, it's like my mom, she said to me something like she was having a technical issue with her iPad. And my brother's a computer engineer, but because he deals mostly with PC stuff. So she's like, "Hey, can you give me a hand with my iPad? I'm having a thing." And I fixed it for her. And she's like, "Sorry to be a pain in the ass, but I just don't know how to fix this and your brother was busy." So I said, "Don't worry about it. At some point you taught me how to use a spoon." So
Yeah.
don't worry about it. We're even.
Yeah. We can chalk that one thing off the list.
Yeah.
We're even for that now.
Yeah, exactly. So, it becomes it's a give and take. Eventually your parents give you a bunch of stuff and you take it. And then eventually, you start giving it back to them in other ways.
Unless you're this fucktard.
Yeah, of course. Well, not everybody needs to be like. There has to be some parents out there who regret having children,
and now these are people that do. And,
I would assume so.
Because and really this guy, like, I got to get his name, Michael Rotundo.
Michael Rotundo.
His parents encouraged him to get a job. They offered a whole bunch of money and helping him finding a place. They also, like, helped him, like, organize what he needed to do. Like, hey, you know what? Why don't we help you do this? Why don't we help you? And he didn't want any of that he just wanted to live off of them and sponge off them, and he actually thought that it was his right to do so.
Yeah.
He thought it was his right. He had a right to sponge off his parents as long as he needed to.
No. So the way it is in Canada, now this is like you said in New York, but in Canada, we are legally obligated, legally by law, by the government, by the court system, we are legally obligated to supply all the basic necessities for our children's lives until their 18th birthday.
Yeah.
We are not required to give them dance lessons. We are not required to give them guitars. We are required to give them shelter, food, clothing, education.
Yeah.
That is it by law. Everything else is just a fucking bonus.
Yeah.
This guy, and that's only until they turn 18. After that, paying for college is not my fucking job. Paying for your car is not my fucking job. Paying for your rent is not my fucking job. I will help you because I'm a nice person.
And I love you.
And I love you.
And I want to see you succeed in life. But at a certain point,
your decisions have to be the outcome of your life.
And I feel bad for these parents because I feel like at some point in time, they loved this kid too much.
Yeah.
They loved him too much to, like, literally take a baseball bat to the side of his head, which is one thing.
I don't necessarily think you have to go that route. Like, just because you're having issues with your kid, I don't think you need to attempt to murder them.
I don't think it's necessarily like a murder swing,
but
like at least a bunt.
Yeah,
you know,
just a little. We call it a love tap in my household. But I think you're right. I think at one point, is it both parents, like blood parents?
It sounds
like mom and a stepdad.
It doesn't mention whether or not that's the case.
Okay, it's probably his full blood parents then, because I was thinking sometimes like I had I knew of a situation where the couple had gotten married and they had. The woman had a son previous, and she treated him like a god. Like he was treated like a god. So it got to the point where he was like elder abusing them for money, and the mother was like, "No, it's okay. He's blah, blah, blah. He's my baby. I have to take care of him." And we're not like when he was like 16. We're talking like when he's 50. He's going to them and being like, "I need money. I need money." So finally, she died, and one of her last dying wishes was, take care of, I'm not going to say the name, take care of the son, take care of our boy, or take care of my boy.
Yeah. So
now the husband is like, motherfucker, because of course he's such a nice guy. He feels obligated now.
Yeah.
So now he's getting he's getting bled dry financially. And it was never physical stuff, but it was always like, well, I need $50. I need $100. Give me $200. And then of course he's like, well, my wife would do it, so I guess I got to do it, right?
Yeah.
And then finally he was like, no, I've had enough. And he put the foot down, and then all of a sudden that's when the shit started getting like, not physical, still never got physical.
Yeah.
But it was always like, well, you're fucking me over, and I'm not going to be able to survive, and I'm going to fucking die and all that. Like, sorry, man, but you're fucking 55 years old. Like, it's time for you to figure out your shit.
Yeah.
You don't need to be coming to your stepdad and fucking being like, oh, I need money for my hydro bill. Well, what the fuck? Why do you need money? You have a job. Like, why do you not? Like,
take care of your own crap.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is like, I know, like, I talk to a lot of people, and everybody has like, there's as many different ways to parent on this planet as there are parents.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Right? Which is good, to a certain extent. I feel like there definitely are some do nots.
Yeah.
In the parenting world, there's some hard, don't do that shit.
Yeah.
But there are laws against that stuff. Just in general. So anything within that realm, like, as long as you stay on that side of the do not things,
yeah,
you're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
Right. And we there's not a human being alive that has not had some sort of drama, weird stuff with their parents. Nobody looks back on their childhood and be like, you know what? I had the best childhood I possibly could have. My parents were perfect.
Yeah, my parents never yelled at me. They
Yeah.
never punished me. They never.
But
it was amazing.
But even that side of, like, if you go back to that side, they're like, you know what? I actually wish I had more rules.
Yeah.
My parents, like,
I did a lot of shit I
up.
shouldn't have done.
No wonder I'm fucked up. I never had any boundaries.
Yeah.
My parents instilled no like, how good or how bad, we're always going to damage our kids somewhat because we're not perfect.
Yeah.
So you do the best you can for your kids. You give them the best, what that you can with your understanding of life.
Yeah.
And hope in some ways that they take that and are able to become fully functioning adults.
Well, it's like, there's certain things like our two oldest kids, we got them cell phones when they were commuting for school and on buses and walking and all that stuff. So we got them cell phones a few years ago. And now they are at the point where they still are young enough that they can't get their own cell phones.
Yeah.
So their cell phones are still technically in our names.
Yeah.
They do pay the bill every month. They send us money. They e-transfer us money, and they pay that bill. But they can't, they just can't have. They don't have the credit, basically.
Yeah.
They don't have credit cards. They don't have 5 years of experience, whatever. And so they can't get their own cell phones. So those are in our. But we still it got to the point where the one daughter was like, if you can't pay your bill, then come to us and be like, look, I can't pay the bill, but how about I come in and clean your house?
Yeah.
Or babysit for you or mow the lawn or something that will help me pay that bill. But there was none of that. It was just like radio silence. We would hear nothing. We would still pay the bill, but we would hear nothing. And finally it got to the point where I was like, you either pay the bill or I will cut it off.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no problem going to the phone company and being like, shut that phone off. And then the bill started getting paid. And because it got to the point where she was like, fuck, I'm going to lose my phone. And it got to we were paying the bill because it was like, well, we know she's looking for work. And then it got to the point where she wasn't looking for work. And then she had some medical issues and that, so that's all sorted and stuff. But it got to the point where I was like, I can't fucking do this anymore.
Yep.
And we had to say, look, you either start paying or we're shutting it off. You can't have it both ways anymore. And then she started paying the bill, and she pays it every month. She pays it on time and so on and so forth. Or if she's going to be late, she at least texts us and be like, I don't get paid until 2 days after I would normally pay you the phone bill. So,
yeah.
And that's fine. It's for me, it's never about the money because we can afford to pay the phone bill.
But it's
talk to us.
Your obligation and being responsible.
Yeah.
And that's that.
If you're going to be late for work, you don't just show up late. You phone your boss and be like, hey, there was a fucking accident.
I'm running behind.
The bus had to be rerouted. I'm going to be 15 minutes late. Oh, okay, no problem. Instead of your boss being like, where the fuck have you been? How come you didn't call me and tell me you were going to be late? I called Sue in because I needed some, I didn't think you were coming. Well, it's all about the responsibility.
Yeah.
This guy obviously was not taught that.
And this is I don't know what his lessons as parents, but there's a part of me, and this is why I want to talk about this, is like, at what point, and I feel like here's obviously we all know kids can be assholes.
Yeah.
Your kids, actually, the chances are your kid is an asshole.
Yeah.
Right? We have between us 5 children.
Yeah.
Guaranteed one of them statistically is an asshole.
Yeah.
If we're lucky.
Yeah.
One of them.
Only one, yeah. It's probably 2 or 3.
Just in general.
Yeah,
Like,
probably the two
run
that we share.
Run that statistic through your head.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, 40% of people I know are most probably assholes.
You know, when they interview dentists about the new gum, they always interview 5 of them.
Yeah,
So-
4 out of 5.
Yeah, so statistically,
One
it's
of
all based on groups of 5.
So, you know, that's
Probably the same dick that doesn't like the gum.
but you know, like we know, and let's be honest, even on the best of days, there has been times when I myself have been an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to say that I love all the people or whatever makes you not an asshole, that I do that all the time. But I know there are people, no matter how great I might be, that there are people that think I'm an asshole.
Yeah.
There are times that even people I love think I'm an asshole, and that goes for all of us.
Yeah.
But at some point in time, this child was turned into an asshole.
Yeah.
Because if you have the balls and like the unmitigated gall to be like, no, you know what? Fuck you, Dad. You can't kick me out of your house.
Yeah. You owe me this.
30 years. You owe me my basement, you know, whatever.
The best thing about this is that I don't know if it's the same in the States, but in Canada, when somebody, like, they have wills, right? People
Yeah.
write wills, and that's usually to give gifts to their family members or whoever when they die, right? Everybody knows what a will is, I would assume. That was my legal corner for this episode.
Thanks for informing us about wills. I
Yeah.
never knew that you could leave people stuff when you died.
Yeah, I
just
know, it
thought the
all-
government got it all.
Yeah, when you die, it just goes poof, and it disappears, just like all the characters in Infinity War. So, spoilers. So, anyways, in Canada and in British Columbia in particular, parents have the ability to write out somebody in their will,
Yeah.
their children. You're not you're not legally entitled to your parents' estate.
No, if I want to give it all to my cat, I can.
No, you can't actually, but I'm getting to that. So what it is, like, if you were my kid
Yeah.
and we hadn't talked for 40 years
Yeah.
because we were estranged or whatever, we didn't get along, we didn't talk, I can put a thing in, it's called a codicil, and you put it in the will, and you can say, I haven't talked to my son Elliot for 40 years because he disagreed with this, and we've just never seen eye to eye, and we stopped talking, and we've never communicated since. I don't know where he lives. I have no contact whatsoever for the last 40 years. I leave him nothing.
Yeah.
Then the courts will say, fair enough.
Yeah.
But if you're involved and you're around and you bring me, I meet my grandkids and I know my grandkids and we get along fine, and then all of a sudden when I'm nearing death, you're like, well, Dad, I think you should, maybe you should go into home. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm not going. You're out of the will.
Yeah.
Fuck you, you're out of the will.
I'm giving it all to my cat.
Yeah, I'm giving it all to the cat. Even if they do that legally, like with papers, you have the right to challenge that will.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can be like, look, I was here. I was involved. I did this. Now, you won't necessarily get everything, but you would be able to get a certain percentage of it.
Yeah.
So this guy, he thinks he's getting it all now.
Yeah.
And that's the problem is that somebody turned this kid into a dick, and he feels like he just deserves everything now that his parents have worked for. But the point is your parents work, they give you a certain amount of that until you're 18 or 19, whatever the year is that you just agree upon to move out. And then they may help you a little bit with college and so on, maybe your first down payment on your house.
They
and all
help
that.
pay for your wedding.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever
They
else.
help you with stuff along the way.
Because they love you, and so they continue to support you because they want you to have a great life.
Exactly. But then what happens then is that at the end, nearing the end of their life, then you're the one who helps coordinate all their bills and helps pay their their seniors home rent and all, it's a give and take, right? Like, so I don't understand people. This is not the first guy I've ever heard about that feels entitled. Like, he's like, oh, I'm just going to live with my parents forever.
And they didn't want him. And so in the end, the judge did like tell him to like get on his horse, but he was arguing. He's like, they have to give me 30 days notice.
They've given you 30 years notice. Like 30 days notice. Come on, buddy.
And the judge was all like, yeah, I don't think so. Like, you've had more than enough notice. Get the fuck out. And he's like, yeah, well, they didn't give me 30 days notice. And this was the legal thing he was trying to like appeal back on. He's like, they didn't give me enough time to get out. And so he took them to court, be like, they have to give me 30 days notice. And he struck that down because he did like, he literally, the judge was like, well, I see the judge was like, actually, you've done some work in figuring out this thing, because he set precedents and all this other, like, he actually presented a very strong legal case.
Okay.
And the judge may have actually like been like, okay, well, we'll let it be the way it is, and so on, until he said, it wasn't hard. I just did an internet search. It only took minutes. And at that point, the judge kind of turned on him and went like, yeah, fuck you, you're out.
Yeah. Well, if you can do that in minutes, you can get an apartment in minutes, too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you put together a legal case, which the judge actually kind of complimented him on.
Yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, whatever. I don't even care about your compliment. Fuck you, judge.
Nice.
It only took minutes.
And then the judge is like, fuck you.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, well, if you're that great, you can find an apartment. Get the fuck out.
There you go.
And so he's on his ass, which is great, which I love. And this is for me, and I think all parents out there in the world, this is a teachable moment, which is mainly why I wanted to talk about it. You can love your kids, but you can love your kids too much.
Yeah.
And that's something we should all, in this day and age right now, I think there's a certain percentage of parents that, yes, your kids are important, and raising kids is very important. It's one of the most important things you will do in your existence.
Yeah.
But there's a balance. And let's remember that you're the adults and you want your kids to be adults, so maybe you should give them examples of what adults look like.
There you go.
Rather than just be like butlers to children's whims.
Exactly. All right, I got to get out of here.
All right.
For Small Town Bringdown, I'm Brandon Grader.
I'm Elliot Drew.
Thanks for listening to us talk shit about shit.
I grew up in a real small town. Main streets, there was no one around. Skipping school, smoking pot in the sun. Remember days when we were young. I grew up, got a beautiful wife. I brought a son into...
This has been a Lunchbox fabrication.